Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Make sure to subscribe for more daily Yu-Gi-Oh content. So today we're looking at the new mini box 32 Photon Galaxy. It's covering the secret rare cards, and the first one is Photon Strike Bouncer. This is a light attribute warrior type Xyz monster. It's a rank 6 with 2700 attack and 2000 defense. It requires 2 level 6 monsters to summon it, and once per turn and during either player's turn, when a monster effect is activated on your opponent's side of the field, you can attach 1 Xyz material from this card, negate the effect, and if you do, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. So this is just generic monster effect negation, which is really useful. You do have other cards out there that can have this type of effect, but they have various conditions. For example, Chivalry can only be activated during the battle phase. You also have a version which I think it's Champion's Tyrant or something alongside that type of name, where you must control a level 7 or higher monster to activate that effect to negate your opponent's monster. This is just generic. So long as it activates, and it doesn't matter if it's on your turn or your opponent's, you punish your opponent because it shuts down the effect and it burns them. It doesn't do 1000, it does 500 points of damage because of the whole Duel Links reduction in the burn effect, but it's still a reasonably decent effect. You can use it twice, and its 2700 attack on a rank 6 monster is nothing to sneeze at. Ghost Trick Autocard is a dark attribute zombie type Xyz monster. It's a rank 3 with 1800 attack and 1600 defense. It requires 2 level 3 monsters, and its effect is monsters your opponent controls cannot target face-up Ghost Trick monsters or any face-down defense position monsters or attacks except this one. Detach 1 Xyz material from this card, and target 1 set card your opponent controls, destroy that target. You can only use this effect of Ghost Trick Autocard once per turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 other Ghost Trick card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. So this is a generic rank 3. You don't actually have too many of those. You have number 17 Leviathan Dragon, and maybe 1 or 2 of these various Jin type monsters that were used by Masukumo in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal. Other than that, we don't have too many powerful ones, and at least this is a decent one. We do have the Ghost Trick archetype mostly within the Duel Links, but I don't think we have every card. I think there's a couple of them missing. Essentially, some of the Xyz monsters are still missing, but that's fine. They'll be introduced within their own time. Being able to get rid of your opponent's set cards means it's not just their spell or traps, it can be their monsters as well. Depending on the type of deck you're facing, it can be quite useful when countering some of the Subterra archetypes, or some of these flip effect annoying decks that you sometimes come across. It's okay, but it's nothing to write home about. It is quite weak, other than the effects being decent. And the other thing is, if you're going after one of your opponent's back row, they can always respond to it unless it has to have a specific timing. For example, with Drowning Mirror Force, that couldn't activate in response to this effect because it's a battle phase trap, whereas something like, I don't know, Shadow's Spell, for example, can trigger in response to this effect. So that's the major downside. Now, Steel Swarmroach is a personal favourite of mine within the new set. It's a dark attribute fiend type Xyz monster. It's a rank 4 with 1900 attack and 0 defense. It requires just 2 level 4 monsters to summon it. During either player's turn, when a level 5 or higher monster would be special summoned, you could detach 1 Xyz material from this card, negate the special summon, and if you do, destroy it. What I love about this card is it counters some of these really annoying decks that are currently running around. I'm talking about the Red Eyes Black Dragons, and more annoyingly than that, Dark Magician and Blue Eyes White Dragon. Any of those decks seem to be constantly cropping up. They don't tend to be beaten that often, and it's just quite boring to see. With this, at least this is a strategy to go against your opponent. Yes, you don't know what your opponent is playing if you're going first, but it's always a good idea. It's a decent stat lineup on it, and you can always equip it with something like Powerful Guardian to keep it on the field and to protect it if you think that your opponent is running something different. It's just a good way of just outing some of these strategies, and it will make your opponent think twice before reacting and just special summoning as much as they like, which is the typical standard for Blue Eyes White Dragon players. Number 70, Malevolent Sin, is a dark attribute insect type Xyz monster. It's a rank 4 with 2400 attack and 1200 defense. It requires 2 level 4 monsters to summon, and once per turn you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, then target 1 monster your opponent controls, banish it until your opponent's next standby phase. At the end of the damage step, if this card attacked, you can make this card gain 300 attack, and if you do, increase its rank by 3. So this is one of the spider monsters. You've got another couple of Xyz monsters that are based on this, but more evolved. This is a decent card because it's generic. You can just summon it from 2 level 4 monsters. You can disrupt your opponent because you're able to banish one of their monsters. So if they're trying to do anything, you can prevent that from happening whilst you get on with your turn and stop any disruptions that they might have set up with that monster. And the other thing is this card can continually get stronger as it can use the effect to raise its attack points up. Yes, it's only 300, but its side effect, main effect, is that first initial one of banishing your opponent's annoying monsters. Again, if you're a number hunter, this is one of those number monsters, so it's always something you're going to want to pick up. Photon Lizard is a light attribute dragon type level 3 with 900 attack and 1200 defense. You contribute this card, add 1 level 4 or lower photon monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect, Photon Lizard, once per turn. So this is a generic kind of it's a searcher for the Photon archetype. It's quite useful because this effect means you can get any level 4 or lower. There aren't any other conditions. You can still special summon. It doesn't prevent the monster from attacking. It doesn't prevent you from summoning multiple monsters or going into any Xyz plays. It simply means that you do need to have this card on the field. So if you're doing that on the turn that you're tribute summoning this monster, make sure that you're doing something else to either protect yourself or to just set another monster if you can special summon one. Otherwise you risk taking a lot of damage to the face, which can put you in a vulnerable position later on. Photon Vanisher is a light attribute warrior type level 4 with 2000 attack and 0 defense. Its effect is it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must first be special summoned from your hand, or you control a Photon or Galaxy monster. It cannot attack the turn it is special summoned. You can only special summon Photon Vanishers once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can add 1 Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from your deck to your hand. An Xyz monster that was summoned using this card on the field as material gains this effect. Banish any monster destroyed by battle with this card. What I love about this card is, okay, it's very similar to how Photon Thrasher is, but it's a little bit the reverse. Whereas Thrasher has to special summon itself with nothing else out, this relies on you having either a Photon or a Galaxy monster to special summon it. Though it cannot attack, the ability to then go into an Xyz monster, typically a rank 4, means that it's gaining an additional effect by being able to banish an opponent's monster as well. Facing certain decks that rely on the graveyard means you can disrupt them quite heavily, and typically they won't have the ability to recover those monsters, some of the key components of those decks. The other thing is, when it's special summoned, you instantly get to add a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon straight from your deck to the hand, and there's actually an Xyz monster which, if you pair with this card, lets you instantly special summon that by getting rid of 1 Xyz material. So there's a lot of synergy between some of these plays. Yugioh Head is a dark attribute spellcaster type level 6 with 2100 attack and 2000 defense. The effect, if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can normally summon this card without tributing as a level 4 monster. When this card is normal summoned, you can target up to 2 Yugioh monsters in your graveyard, except Yugioh Head, special summon them. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn, except by an Xyz summon that uses only Yugioh monsters as materials. An Xyz monster that was summoned using this card on the field as Xyz material gains its effect. If it is Xyz summoned, you can draw 1 card. So this is actually one of the newer supports for the Yugioh archetype. It's a bit like you've got these combined versions of the Dododo, the Yugioh and the Go-Go-Go series, and they're all been used by the series hero, which was Yuma Tsukumo. It's quite powerful because it's versatile. You can summon it as a level 6 or you can summon it as a level 4. There aren't really many restrictions, and you're able to just bring out 2 Go-Go-Go monsters the immediate point when it's summoned. It does have to be normal summon for this effect, but it doesn't have any real restrictions to that. The only restriction is that it does require you to go into an Exceeds monster that needs Go-Go-Go monsters, so there is a limited pool of those at the moment. The options are restricted to the point where it might not be worth playing it for the time being, but if you do, you get to draw a card, and who can say no to that being a decent effect. Dodo Dwarf Go-Go-Go Glove is a Earth attribute rock type level 4 with 0 attack and 1800 effects. During your main phase, you can special summon one Zugogogo or Go-Go-Go monster from your hand if you control a Go-Go-Go or Dodo monster, except Dodo Dwarf Go-Go-Go Glove, while this card is in your graveyard. You can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Dodo Dwarf Go-Go-Go Glove once per turn. I felt really stupid saying that name like several times over, so I'm not going to repeat it again. The whole point is this was part of the newer support which combined the various archetypes you had together, much like Go-Go-Go Head. Being able to do this from the graveyard means you can instantly go into a rank for Exceeds play, either Utopia or if you've got other monsters out, you can go into those Exceeds monsters that require 3 materials to summon them. United We Stand is a equipment spell card. Its effect is the equipped monster gains 800 attack and defense for each face-up monster you control. This is a very powerful card, and if used correctly can OTK your opponent, or put them in a position where they can't actually deal with the monster very easily. So it's best if you just look at it from having 3 monsters on your field. That's 2,400 point boost. You're getting almost essentially a Red Eyes Black Dragon on the field with that level of attack stat. At its worst, 800 is nothing to sneeze at. You know, it can raise something to over 3,000 attack points, or over 2,000 if you're looking at level 4 monsters. You can have mid-level monsters that do quite decently from it. It also synergizes with Powerful Dragon being an equipped spell, so it can always use that effect to randomly add this card to your hand from your deck. And the final secret rare is Hammer Shot. This is an equipped spell card with the effect destroy one face-up attack position monster with the highest attack. If it is a tie, you get to choose. This is very similar to something like Smashing Ground because it's able to just get rid of one of your opponent's monsters. The disadvantage of this card is it does rely on the strongest attack position monster, so if that's your own, you're just destroying your own monster for potentially no point. Even if it is one of your opponent's monsters, they might have a destruction protection effect such as Destruction Jammer, which is in the game, or something else such as Magic Drain, and there's some other counter traps that actually work well against this card. Or maybe your opponent isn't too fussed about you getting rid of one monster when they have other cards around, so there's always that disadvantage as well. It's overall, I think it's a decent side card, but would I use it amongst all the support that we already have? The answer to that is no.